This is in no way a review or a criticism of Actualize.org or the Life Purpose course, nor am I in any way being paid to testify in favor of it. If you haven't bought the Life Purpose course and are thinking about buying it, and you're looking around for reviews to see if it's worth it, I promise it is worth it. I have found my life purpose. I'm not going to give away any of the exercises, book recommendations, or the core concepts, except for the hero's journey. Leo has a free video on this concept, so I think you can intuit that he would utilize it in his course. I'm talking about my life purpose and my where I am in the journey. But first I want to give you a backstory of how I got started with Actualize.org. In 2016, I was 22 and I had a near-death experience. Maybe in another video I'll talk about that. But the point is, it really detonated a quarter life crisis in me. And I knew I needed something, I needed some meaning and direction in my life. So I turned to philosophy books and some self-help channels on YouTube. But a lot of them were very woo-woo and new age. And I thought they were pretty shallow. But at some point my algorithm started recommending Actualize.org. And just the thumbnails really stood out. There was a black background instead of being out in nature like a lot of these were. And with this man, this little bald, pale man in a black t-shirt, as opposed to, some stereotypical hippie-looking guy wearing all sorts of regalia, the kind you would expect to see sunning his perineum in a yoga class outside. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me was the length of his videos. They were like 40 minutes to an hour. Now they're like 2 hours, maybe more. So I started watching his videos regularly, and I felt like his concepts were artfully holistic. The concepts tied into each other very well. The other self-help channels, because they were so short, I felt like even though they would try to be holistic, they were really just lazily repetitive and vapid. So at the time, Leo had already made the Life Purpose course, and after a year of watching his videos, I had embraced a lot of important values, but I still didn't have a life purpose, and I recognized how important that was. One of the personal insights Leo gives is that he's always had a deep sense of meaning in his life, and I'm the same way. Ever since I was a kid, I knew I would do something big and creative. I just didn't know what. I dabbled with music and fine arts and a little bit of writing, but none of them felt right. So I think it was the day after Christmas of 2017, I bought the Life Purpose course with one of those prepaid credit cards, and it had about $300 on it. That's how much the course costs. And once I had access to the course, I spent months on it very intensely. Sometimes I would take a break from the course to read the books that are in dignity with some of the concepts before I would go on to the next core concept. When I finally got to the point where it came time to decide what my life purpose was, I decided I would study psychology and become a licensed professional counselor, specializing in anxiety. And when I made this up, I wasn't as excited as I thought I would be. I thought that, my whole life I really wanted to know what I wanted to do. And so far, even though I do know what it is I want to do, I know my life purpose, figuring it out and deciding what it is was the hardest part. And I felt like I wasn't being 100% honest with myself. Nonetheless, I still felt excited. I felt like I was beginning my life. So I started the course around New Year's of 2018, and by May, I decided what my life purpose was, and I enrolled in community college. Classes wouldn't start until August, and because I was spending so much time on the course, I had a lot of free time before classes started. So during that summer, I started watching art house films and classic movies from world cinema, and I really tried to understand them more. Years before this, when I was 19, Netflix didn't have a lot of the big movies they have now, but they had movies like Eight and a Half, Bicycle Thieves, Passion of Anna, that's a Bergman film, and The Battleship Potemkin. And these movies were incredibly unique to what I had seen, and I wanted to observe these kinds of movies more. So as birthdays and Christmases passed, I had collected a small number of art house films, many released by the Criterion Collection. But a lot of them were over my head, and and I took the summer of 2018 to try to understand them more and to appreciate them. And I didn't know anyone else who was doing this kind of thing. Every November and December, Barnes & Noble has this big 50% off sale of Criterion Collection movies. And sometimes I would see aging hipsters getting a copy of Repo Man or maybe a Tarkovsky film. But I still felt somewhat unique. I was watching up to 3 movies a day, and I thought that I would like to try to make a movie myself. I remember my first day of college, before I left the house, I remember thinking how cool it would be if this was my first day of film school. During my first semester, I confided in my professor, whom I appreciate dearly, that I had a passion for art house film and classic world cinema, and that I thought I was studying the wrong thing. I wrote my first short film, Quarter Life, inspired by my first quarter-life crisis, over the summer between my first and second year at community college. And I had written a part specifically for Professor Fatinas, and had hoped that I would be able to find him on my first day back. I think I even had a script printed out, ready to give him. And so I was sitting in my French class, French 101, waiting for my new professor, another man who I will always appreciate. And by fate, Professor Fatinas walked through the door, and he sat down next to me. Actually, he sat down next to me, but one seat behind me, next to my friend Joe. I always sat in the front row, sort of like I was being an earnest student, but maybe it was, so that my agoraphobic tendencies, I could make a quick escape out of the class. But anyways, I had told him about the role, and he was on board with it, and I'm really grateful that he helped me with that. It never got finished, however. But during the process, I confided in him that I wanted to fully commit to being a filmmaker. And after shooting his scenes, he told me about the digital video degree that's at our college. and we wrapped after shooting his scenes, and I haven't seen him since. I haven't spoken to him since except for a few emails. But I enrolled in the digital video certificate and declared my second major at community college. And I thought that I wasn't going to finish it because I thought during that spring I would apply to film school. But then the pandemic hit. So I stayed at community college and made some more video projects, including a short film called Insanium, which was a cheap ripoff of Twin Peaks. But those are all on my YouTube channel. So after my third year at this 2-year community college, I met my first threshold guardian. I didn't get into film school. So that's interesting. Even though I'm extremely disappointed, and it's a huge blow to my ego. I mean, I was really confident that I was going to get in. I mean, I applied to a film school in Richmond, Virginia, nonetheless. I mean, not like NYU or Emerson College, UCLA, that kind of thing. And so, even though that happened, I'm still very in line with the hero's journey. You see, the hero starts out in his mundane day-to-day life, and he's met with the call to action, which for me was knowing that I wanted to be a filmmaker and I wanted to study film. But a lot of the times the hero refuses the call to action. He doesn't want to go on this long, hard journey, which I'm sure you could imagine trying to be a professional filmmaker, especially a great one, is a long and hard journey. But then he's met by some kind of divine intervention or like a mentorship. So think of Athena confronting Odysseus, or Ben Kenobi helping out Luke Skywalker. And that's what Professor Fatinus was like for me. So then the hero is ready to start his journey, and then he's met with his first threshold guardian. It's sort of like Leo compares it to the boss, like the first boss in a video game. And a lot of the times, the hero isn't ready to beat that threshold guardian. And that's where I'm at. He has to retreat and lick his wounds, as Leo says. And he has to hone his craft, and he has to come back in some amount of time. For me, I guess it's a year from now, and he has to face that threshold guardian again. So that's where I'm at in my life purpose. And one thing that I've found really helpful is going back to the course. During that time when I had found my life purpose, I didn't go back to the course at all because I thought, the hard part was over. But so now that I'm, in this, it's sort of like the belly of the beast. You have to get better. But in this time, I've gone back to the course. And a lot of the core concepts, I've started it over completely. I mean, even though I know what I want to do, just the concepts themselves are really, really extremely helpful. And a lot of those values had slipped away from me because I got kind of cocky, actually. I mean, during my classes, I would often have the best projects, and and my professors were pretty um, pretty they were happy to see how excited I was to be a filmmaker and how much I knew about the history of cinema. But so anyways, so that's it. That's where I'm at in my life journey, my life purpose, and my hero's journey. And that's where I am with actualize.org. So thank you for sticking around and watching this. And if you're thinking about buying the Life Purpose course, I strongly urge you to do it because it's very, very helpful.